This is a pretty big story trending today. Survivors of the Parkland school shooting coming out swinging at Louis C.K. after the comedian mocked their activism in his routine. Take a listen to this leaked audio from the set performed in December, and we should warn you, it may be offensive.
They testified in front of Congress, these kids? Like, what the f***? What are you doing? You're young. You should be crazy. You should be unhinged. Not in a suit saying, I'm here to tell you. You're not interesting. Because you went to a high school where kids got shot? Why does that mean I have to listen to you? How does that make you interesting? You didn't get shot. You pushed some fat kid in the way. And then, now I gotta listen to you talking?
So what I want to talk about in this video is basically how cringy it is when people have to explain or even defend jokes. The thing about jokes is that they are meant to be sometimes offensive. They're meant to push boundaries. They're meant to get you out of your own comfort zone and make you think about stuff that you might not have noticed. They're definitely not supposed to be constricted or confined by social norms. That's kind of the whole point. Even if you go back, the greats of comedy, George Carlin, Jerry Seinfeld, they would basically point out things that we take for granted and give us a different perspective on them. Sometimes that could be very offensive, sometimes it could be insulting to specific people, entire groups. It's what comedy is. Now, there are a set of people who want to take comedy very seriously, and I have a few problems with this, and I'm going to go over them in depth during this video. But what I want to do first is actually put the clip that you just heard from CNN back into context, because what CNN did there was clip out a short little piece of a bit that Louis was doing. They made it look as if, his entire intent with that joke was to attack the Parkland shooting victims or survivors, whatever you want to call them. And it really wasn't. It was a classic comic trope where he was basically, it's an old man making fun of the youth. It wasn't a political statement. He wasn't coming out to say fuck the Parkland shooters and fuck gun control and fuck school shootings and whatever. He was actually just doing a bit about the youth, and that was part of it. That was added for a little bit of comedic effect. It was one point inside of a bit. So to take it out of context the way CNN did and use it for a political statement it's just disingenuous. It's shameful. It's not journalism. There's nothing about that is really even acceptable. I mean, this is a mainstream news channel, and they're taking a piece of a joke, a piece of a bit, and trying to drum up some mass hysteria or take advantage of mass hysteria that already exists. And to be fair, it's not even mass hysteria. It's a small group of incredibly noisy people. We all know that. Most people can watch a Louis C.K. bit, and even if it attacks them, I mean, even any bit when you're watching comedy, even if it does make you uncomfortable or attack you, you just wait for the next joke. I mean, what are you gonna do? It's a comedian. He's pushing boundaries. So I think it's important that we defend comedy, and the first thing I want to do in this video, like I said, is put that clip back into context so you can see he's clearly doing a bit just about the youth in general. And it's a valid point. I mean, what he said, even still, about the Parkland shooters was a valid point. Just because you experienced a traumatic incident doesn't really mean that you have any good ideas or developed ideas. In fact, it might mean the opposite. It might mean that you're biased. You've been influenced by your experience, and you're not thinking clearly on the topic. You're just responding emotionally. So anyways, let's take a quick listen to that, and then I actually want to listen to another bit where he basically has to explain and defend his joke, his comedy style even, and I think he does a really good job of it, and he makes it funny. So we'll put the first clip back into context, and then we'll get into the next joke. So let's go.
But I'm a little disappointed in the younger generation, honestly, because I'm 51 years old, and when I was like 18 to my 20s, I mean, we were idiots. We were getting high, doing fucking mushrooms and shit. And then older people were like, you gotta get your shit together. And we were like, yeah, fuck you. And I was kind of excited to be in my 50s and see people in their 20s and be like, they're crazy. These kids are nuts, but they're not. They're fucking, they're just boring. Fucking telling them you shouldn't say that. What are you, an old lady? What the fuck are you doing? That's not appropriate. Fuck you, you're a child. Why are you finger fucking each other and doing jello shots? Like, why aren't you... You should address me. They're like royalty. They tell you what to call them.
Fuck 'em.
You should address me as they, them. Because I identify as gender neutral. Oh, okay. You should address me as there. Because I identify as a location. And the location is your mother's cunt. It doesn't have to be that nasty. But it can be. I don't know, they testify in front of Congress, these kids? What the fuck? What are you doing? You're young, you should be crazy. You should be unhinged. Not in a suit saying, I'm here to tell, fuck you. You're not interesting. Because you went to a high school where kids got shot? Why does that mean I have to listen to you? How does that make you interesting? You didn't get shot, you pushed some fat kid in the way. Now I gotta listen to you talking? Everybody gets upset when there's a shooting at a high school. I don't really see why it's any worse than anybody else dying. I don't. Because a lot of people die. Every day, 7,500 people die in America, okay? So that day, 17 kids got shot in a school. What about the other fucking 7,500 people? They didn't die in their sleep. Some of them got electrocuted by their parents. Like, people get upset because they're young, right? They died so young. That's offensive to me. Because if I die now, fuck me? Everybody's gonna die. Why is it worse? I mean, old people die. Nobody gives a fuck. You know, like when you tell somebody my grandmother died, you're like, oh, how old was she? She was 98. All right. Why'd you even tell me?
So there you can see, basically, he's making a joke about the youth. It's just like what Dan Carlin would have done. It's what Doug Stanhope did it really well. Doug Stanhope is a person I think we probably disagree on quite a lot of things, but he's one of my favorite comedians. He's a hilarious guy, and that's kind of the point. You can disagree with somebody on something and still respect that they're doing comedy, and still even laugh, even during jokes that you might disagree with in a serious conversation. And even if you're not capable of that, even if, okay, well, if you don't agree with it, you don't find it funny, then fucking fine, don't listen to it. That's literally the farthest that you should go, is just, okay, I'm not gonna listen to it. Because you can hear at least, there was a room full of people, all laughing, all enjoying themselves. They all paid to go out and see Louis C.K. that night. They all presumably knew what they were getting, they knew what to expect. And if they didn't, then fine, they wasted their money. So who the fuck are you to tell these people what they're allowed to go hear? Or to tell a comedian what they're allowed to say? I mean, what has it even got to do with you if you're not listening to it? How is it newsworthy for CNN, and how does it actually affect the lives of the people he talks about, or the people who, I guess, are offended by it by proxy? Well, I'll tell you one reason this is making headlines. It's because comedy influences people's thoughts. We all know that, and especially when a person admires a comedian, it's much easier for that person to be influenced by the comedian. So discrediting that comedian at a national level by deliberately taking his joke out of context and reporting it as offensive, I mean, basically poisoning the well before you even hear the joke, that's one way to win a battle of ideas, or at least to fight one. And that's what every one of these people who complain about these jokes is trying to do. The truth is, comedians do have a certain amount of power. Doug Stanhope is a perfect example for me. I watched him when I was young, and I thought he was fucking hilarious. So I was more inclined to agree with him when he made political jokes. Immigration is one perfect example. I'm Canadian, so every Mexican I've ever met has basically been an outstanding citizen who is smart or wealthy enough to make it here legally. And when Doug Stanhope goes on a rant against people who are anti-immigrant, fucking, what do you care what the person down in the Canadian Tire parking lot is selling, fucking Kanishkanovs or whatever the fuck they're called, whatever parking lot Americans have, if he takes your job, fucking what kind of person or what kind of education would you have to have if an immigrant comes over the border and basically doesn't even speak English and he takes your job? All that shit was hilarious. He was very compelling, and I realized that, I mean, as I grew up, I had taken my views on immigration from him, so I'd make fun of anybody who just had anything critical to say about immigration at the US border between Mexico and the US. And the truth is, I don't fucking have a clue about that situation. I don't live on the US border. I've never ever met an illegal Mexican. Illegal Mexicans can't get here, or at least not that many of them, right? Like, it literally has nothing to do with me. And so I was influenced to think about a political topic that really I had no business even thinking about. And that's not good, but to say that, Doug Stanhope isn't allowed to make his point because someone up in Canada might get influenced to think about immigration differently when, I mean, that's what he's doing. He's trying to make a point. He's trying to get people to think about things differently. How are you going to take that away from him? But of course, CNN wouldn't attack Stanhope for that because he agrees with them. However, in this case, they were pretty invested in the story. They're very invested in David Hogg and the other kids at the Parkland school, the survivors. I mean, they'd been retweeting them and fucking putting up their opinions. And anyways, we'll get to that. But the point is, Doug Stanhope was instrumental in convincing me as a kid to be left-wing on immigration without even considering all the variables. And I had to later learn that I was being a complete tool, being used by an ideological framework to perpetuate a perspective that I didn't even have myself. I mean, I didn't have any perspective on that situation. So I understand the influence and power that comedians have. I just feel that they've earned that influence and power by being good at comedy. Like, again, who the fuck are you to take that power away? You didn't grant it or earn it yourself. The comedian is that kid in class who just said shit. He got in trouble all the time, but half the time when he said shit, everybody would laugh, and that's what he was going for. He was taking risks, making sacrifices, trying to see what people liked. And, you know, he would see something and he'd notice something that no one else noticed, and right away he'd just say what came to his mind about it. And like I said, sometimes that didn't work out, sometimes it did. That's what comedians do. You have to allow comedians to take risks. And that's actually what Louis C.K. was doing here. This isn't even a finished bit. This was illegally recorded, and I think that this video might get taken down even, but whatever. I mean, this isn't going to reach millions of people. I'm certainly not going to reach enough people that I think I'm ruining his set. And that being said, he took those risks, and he made the social sacrifices and worked on his unique personality trait until it became a craft that people admired. He now has a responsibility to absolutely fucking nobody. All he can do is continue to be himself and try to make people laugh. If he has a point he wants to get across, that's his own business, and you can go ahead and criticize it and try to make a joke back. You can do any of that, but there shouldn't be any talk of silencing or censoring people or viewpoints. Running hit pieces on CNN about comedians is definitely a step toward censorship. I mean, this is national news, or presumably that's what CNN is supposed to be. They're a 24-hour news network. I mean, there's a whole slew of problems about why CNN is reporting on such a stupid thing, because they have nothing else to report on, and they technically just shouldn't be reporting. If there's nothing to report on, you just shouldn't report, but they have to dig something up. But anyways, if people hate the person that's being censored, and that's what CNN is trying to do, is get people to just hate Louis C.K. right away. They just say, this might be offensive, and they show the most offensive little clip, and anyone who's watching CNN is against everything that he said. That makes them just basically hate him. So there's virtually no chance that they'll be influenced by what he says, and there's very little chance that they're going to speak up when he gets censored. If he gets censored. I'm not saying they're trying to censor him. I'm just saying it is a step in that direction. So anyways, that's why these people are so noisy. That's why shit like this gets on CNN, and that's the reason that people are being such smarmy little fucking assholes and trying to get people banned from places and deplatformed and censored, and it literally is InfoWars. And it's also funny because the people on the left want to talk about fascism and authoritarianism, but who exactly are the people trying to tell everyone what to say and what to do and trying to propagandize fucking comedians? You're a bunch of fucking weirdos, and normal people aren't gonna just sit around and let you keep doing this shit. Pretty soon you'll be completely ignored by everyone, and when you have any real grievances or anything actually important to say, guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna be the gender-neutral person who cried wolf, so to speak. no one's gonna care. You're using your victimhood too much. You're using it up. And I mean, that's only detrimental to yourself, because a lot of people do care about these issues, and a lot of people do, disagree with what Louis C.K. was kind of saying there. But you're making it easier for people to just dismiss you and be like, fuck it, I just don't care. Let people make fun of them and don't even listen to their responses because they're insane. You should have better responses. But again, we're going to get to that. As promised, though, first, I've got some more Louis C.K. lined up here, and honestly, I think this next joke is really one of his funniest ever. It's one of my favorite jokes he's ever made, and it's one in which he is actually explaining and defending the joke he's making. I know I said in the beginning that's cringy, and it is cringy that he has to do it, but even still, I mean, you can really gain something from the way that he explains it, and I found personally that it opened up my perspective. It made me even understand even more the way that these kind of naughty words, so to speak, are being used. That's what these fucking brats that he was talking about earlier would call them. And anyway, so after I show you this, you'll take away from it what you do. We'll move into the next topic. I'm going to ramble on for a bit about a few other people that you may be interested in, but let's take a look at this first.
I know, life was different then. Now people feel like we've made a lot of great advances, but I think a lot of improvements we've made have been just how we say things. Like we changed words, Like I remember when I was in 2nd grade, my teacher made an announcement. Her name was Mrs. Flaherty. I went to school in Boston, and her name was Miss Flaherty. She goes, class, we have a new child starting tomorrow who happens to be retarded. Now, we do not mistreat retarded people. We do not harass retarded children. We do not call retarded children names. And I heard that and I got confused. She said, we do not call retarded children names. I thought she meant that the kid is not going to have a name. Because you don't name retarded kids. That's what I thought she meant. We don't bother name him, he's fucking retarded, he won't remember. That's what I thought she meant. Which is, it's wrong, of course. You should name retarded children. Nelson is a good name. If it's a boy. Jenny if it's a girl. Or a trans retarded boy. But the point is, we don't call them retarded anymore. We don't use that word. They're not retarded. They're lucky. They're all very lucky. They're lucky, which is also a good name for a retarded boy or girl. But the point is, we decided that we helped them by not calling them retarded anymore, which is a little confusing, I think, because when they were growing up, they were told they were retarded. In the 70s, a whole generation of kids, and every generation before them were told they were retarded. They get told, They don't just their whole lives don't tell them. They tell them. Every retarded kid gets told at some point in his life, by his mom or his teacher or by me. That was a part-time job. But they get told. Nelson, I have something to tell you. What is it? You're retarded. What does that mean? You can't tie your shoes and you're 14. Is it bad? Well, are you happy? I'm happy. Good, you're fine. We love you. And then he's fine. He's retarded. And he knows it. He has no fucking problem with it. And you couldn't hurt Nelson's feelings by saying, hey, Nelson, you're retarded. I know, it's great. They don't give a shit what you think of him. They don't give a fuck what you think of him. But then we decided it was offensive because we call each other retarded. Well-minded people use it as an insult to each other, not towards retarded people. It isn't like you're saying, hey, when you say, hey, you're fucking retarded, you're not saying, hey, I hate you and also fuck retarded people. That's not the point to it. The point of it is, you're acting like you're retarded, which would be fine if you were retarded, that would be great, but you're not. That's the point of it. And retarded people aren't involved. They're not even in the fucking room because we exclude them from our lives. We don't allow them to hang out with us. So why the fuck do we think we're going to be offended when we call each other? But we started to feel shitty about it. So we changed it to intellectually challenged. What the fuck? Don't name the kid a thing he can't say out loud. An intellectual challenge is, can you translate Shakespeare into Latin and make it rhyme? These kids are not intellectually challenged, they're intellectually fucking done. They are! It's not their sport. But we decided we didn't want to call him retarded because we called each other that. So we went back to Nelson and we said, listen, Nelson, I have something to tell you. You're not retarded anymore. You mean I'm cured? No, not at all. We just don't call you that because it's a terrible thing to call somebody. But you called me that when I was, yes, but not anymore, because we shouldn't. And he's trying to wrap his head around this, which is difficult for Nelson because he's retarded. If you want to help a group of people, don't just change the thing you call them. Be nice to them. Do something for them. Go meet a retarded person and date. Go date a retarded person. Go have a retarded boyfriend and suck his dick. Then you can fucking get offended. Listen. Fuck it. What are you gonna take away my birthday? My life is over. I don't give a shit. You can be offended. It's okay. You can get mad at me.
Alright, so if you didn't gain something from that, at least a little bit of laughter, maybe there's something fundamentally different about you and me, and my videos might not be for you, but I found that funny, and that kind of humor to me is appealing, and I see nothing wrong with it. I'm glad that Louis C.K. is ballsy enough to come out and do that, and he gets even more ballsy. So believe me, we all understand that some of the stuff he says is a little bit offensive, it's a little bit over the top, it crosses certain boundaries. Maybe that's just what we like about it. It's none of your business. It's what certain people like. So there's somebody else that I want to talk about in this video, and most people who watch this probably are going to know who he is, Sargon of Akkad. I'm not doing this because I think he's retarded. It's not that, I'm actually a fan. I like Carl. He's a intelligent guy. He's much smarter than me. He's great to watch. Whatever, you know. He's a garden gnome who I believe practices archery. So you take it for what it is. He's a great guy. I'm glad that he exists as well. He does a great job. But we're actually going to overlay this with some artful dancing rather than Carl Benjamin. Anyways, so he is an interesting case. And also we can include Milo in this. We can also include Gavin McInnes, fucking Steven Crowder, certainly. There are a number of people, Devin Tracy. A lot of these people are very funny, and they're using comedy in a way that it is being used as a weapon. I mean, I hesitate to call it that because then it sounds dangerous. It's not, it's actually the opposite of dangerous. That's the whole point, is that as human beings, we've sort of devised a way that we can attack each other without causing physical damage, and that's great. Whether it's seething essays or news articles, debates, fucking rap battles, comedy, these are all things that we can use to criticize our opponents without actually having to resort to violence, and that's great. There's also a very important rule about how to respond. So basically, Sargon of Akkad uses comedy in a way that makes people upset intentionally. It makes them want to respond. And you can listen to any number of people who talk about this. What's his name? Scott Adams. He's a master of this kind of discussion. He really knows what he's talking about here. Basically, it's just that you don't respond to comedy with aggression. You can't meet passive aggressiveness with aggression. You have to either meet it with an intelligent response or comedy in due, right? If somebody makes a joke at your expense and you calmly and rationally point out, that joke is actually pretty stupid because of this reason, that's almost funny enough in response just to be a good response. Or maybe it just makes the other person look dumb. You've diffused the joke. Good job. Or if you respond with a joke back, yeah, maybe it's like, okay, you got me with that joke, that was a good joke, here's my joke. And then you can go back and forth. That's what I expect. I make a lot of memes, you know, I work long hours, I have a lot of time on my hands while I work sometimes, and I fuck around on my phone and make some little memes. And so my memes are always basically trying to be a joke, but a provocative joke. A joke that I know is going to get people who disagree with me either to respond or to freak out. And the best part about that, and this is what Benjamin does so well, Sargon, is that when you make those kinds of jokes, your opponents will freak out at the joke. It's intended to make them respond. And so that's the worst thing you can do, is respond, because then just more jokes. I just get to go on a roasting spree fucking every time I make a joke, you make 10 new things that I can make a joke about because you all freak out in the comments section. It's beautiful. But Facebook is kind of turning us away from that. That's where I have most of my followers. I go to fucking alt media, I look all around. It's like a ghost town everywhere I look. So we're losing the battle, and I'm pretty concerned about that. I think that the fact that like people like Louis C.K., like he's at the forefront of comedy. He's one of the best comedians that we've seen in a long time. And maybe that's just my opinion, but I think a lot of people find him very funny. So I think it's fair to say he's really one of the people you expect. Like, he could say anything, he could do anything because he has so much power. He has such a large audience. He's not beholden to any companies or any, business deals, none of that. He just has him and his audience. It's an intimate relationship. It's great. But I mean, he got kind of bulldozed with those the shit that happened. We all know about the shit, or if you don't know, I'm not gonna bring it back up, but he had some shit happen, and it is what it is. He fucking left for a year or two, and then he gets heckled, and he gets, people get upset, and it's on CNN, and they're saying, this is quite offensive, you better watch out. But actually, the guy who came on CNN to talk, the comic analyst or whatever he was actually pretty decent. He did basically say, CNN, or Louis has the right to say these jokes, and we have to let comedians say jokes. He actually said mostly stuff that I agreed with. So I kind of ragged on CNN, where in this case they don't totally deserve it, but they still do. I mean, what does this even belong on the news for? Louis C.K. made a joke about the Parkland shooters. Or the Parkland survivors, I should say. It's already a fucking scandal that this is being covered on CNN, the tweets, the political musings of a 16 or 17, however old he is or was at this time. It's already an absolute scam. Like, imagine if you had your 16-year-old political opinions blasted all over CNN for a week. It's not even okay, honestly. You want to talk about, like, the violence or the harassment of whatever that's sent towards people, like Milo Yiannopoulos when he got banned from Twitter because he made fun of Leslie Jones, and then a bunch of people went and harassed Leslie Jones. Well, CNN posts basically just silly tweets from this kid, and he is a kid. He's a victim of a horrible event. Like, this is actually, he might be traumatized, he might be, he's definitely shouldn't be a focus in the news, in the national news. Maybe his local news where he's trying to get his political voice heard, he's trying to become a journalist or something like that. Whatever the case is, this is only going to hurt him when he's older, and people are going to be able to bring up all this shit he said. Like, he's no angel. He makes his snide comments that are pretty stupid sometimes, and sometimes he's pretty rude, pretty obtuse, you might say. This isn't doing any benefit to him. It's not doing any benefit to the conversation in general. It's not doing anything beneficial for the viewers. It's not doing anything beneficial for CNN. There's no reason to be doing this other than they can't compete in the free marketplace of ideas, and they have to take these cheap political shots at anybody who's spreading ideas that they might not agree with. I mean, when they have nothing else to report on, this is what they do. And it's a shame, because I grew up, I used to like CNN. I want them to be the reliable source that we can all just say, well, it was on CNN, so let's talk about it because they reported it factually, and now I have a better understanding of it. That's not what CNN is anymore. It's very, very one-sided, very ideologically driven, and that doesn't leave much room for people to have good faith, open conversations, and actually reach nuanced conclusions. How are you going to do that when you're just basically trading gotchas, right? That's what the media has become. That's what I do as well. I'll admit it. I make memes, and they're just gotcha memes. They're just a funny quote someone said with a funny response, a witty, satirical, sarcastic response, whatever it is. And it's probably not good for us. But if you're going to do it, and you're allowed to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm allowed to do it, then we have to talk about it, like what we're doing right now. We have to say, okay, we've devolved to this point of very polarized political conversations, and banning certain people from these conversations, that's definitely the last thing we should be doing, in my opinion. And so I actually want to conclude this video by actually talking about something Sargon said. Basically, the idea was he was debating white nationalists, and this is pretty well-known thing that happened. He was banned from Patreon for it. He said the N-word. He called them the N-word, white nationalists. he was using it in a satirical way, the way that they use it, to refer to people who they apparently don't like the behavior of. Honestly, it's almost a little clever. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. It's not that clever, but it definitely has a point and a purpose and a comedic effect. And for people who are more desensitized to these kind of words and this kind of comedy, what are you going to do? Let them have their comedy. Let them have their fun. He's actually one of the only people out there debating white nationalists. You fucking losers won't even have them on your shows. You don't even have the balls to go out there and debate them. I'm not just going to sit back and watch all this shit happen where people are getting banned, people are getting shouted down and have to disappear from their career for 2 years because, well, actually, in Louis' case, he actually did something kind of fucked up, and I think he chose to leave, and maybe that was the right choice. I mean, it's very strange what he did, but that's his own thing to deal with. But what Benjamin Sargon did was basically just use comedy to try to diffuse racism, and it seems counterproductive, counterintuitive maybe to people, like, well, yeah, but he used the N-word. To me, that's actually just racist. And fine, so call him a racist. Like, what else are you gonna do, alright? Call him a racist. But don't we can't be banning him. Facebook and YouTube and Patreon and stuff, don't ban people for fucking that shit. Let them get called racist. Let them get enough influx of people who disagree with them come at them if they actually say something that's dumb. And give them a chance to either defend themselves or change their view. It's like Milo with the thing where he basically defended pedophiles. That was kind of fucked up. I was in the live chat there. I was on that podcast, watching that podcast in the live chat saying, dude, that's fucked up. Milo's fucked up. What he's saying right now is fucked up. And he's gonna pay for it. I made memes about it. Everybody made memes about it. I think that was listening, that was part of that conversation. And what we basically did was help him change his view. And so I'm not gonna hold him to those views if he's changed his mind. There's people out there that still to this day say, well, he defends pedophilia. And it's like, I get the physical urge to stop you from saying that. You know, the same way that you get the physical urge to stop other people from saying things, I get the urge to stop you from saying that he defends pedophilia, because I think that you're defaming his character. I think that actually he doesn't actively defend pedophilia. He said a shitty idea, and it was most likely just an emotional response, actually, to him being the victim of pedophilia when he was younger. It was a way for him to escape it, to dismiss it, to distance himself from it, to disassociate, sort of. And so he was dismissive about it. Intellectually, it's unacceptable. He needed to be shown, actually, you're quite wrong with your opinion. You should really think about this harder. But you can't stop him from saying that, or at least that's what I believe. And that's what you ought to believe as well, because, like I said, I want to stop you from saying that he defends pedophilia, but you want to be able to express that view. And so we have to discuss it. I can't stop you from saying it, you can't stop me from saying anything, we can't stop Milo from saying anything, we just have to discuss what they say. And Milo has changed his view. Whether you believe him, whether you think he's disingenuous, or you think he was just saying it to save face, to sell his fucking book, make sure that he doesn't get banned from every platform, or whatever it is, he changed his view, and you have to be willing, at least to some degree, to take people at their word, or else we're just gonna be putting words in people's mouth. He doesn't actively defend pedophilia. That's not what his platform is, that's not what he talks about, it's a hack job, you saying that. Listen, there was a group in, I want to say like the 2008, 2010 era, somewhere around there, called LulzSec. And they were pretty funny. They were a group of hackers or something from Germany, I want to say, somewhere like that. Very smart dudes. They used to break into or hack news websites, local news websites, or what's one of the fucking famous ones? I'm drawing a blank here. But they used to make hilarious political statements through hacking. And basically what they were doing, they were just almost like a 4chan shitposting. I'm pretty sure that's where they came from. Shitposting kind of group, and they were called LulzSec for lul being a joke and sec being security. So they were basically trying to say, you're trying to take a joke from the internet, fuck you. That's actually what the whole anonymous thing was, when 4chan got politicized right around that time. That's mostly what it was. It was people were trying to take their jokes. Scientology was the biggest one. Fucking 4chan went up against Scientology. And it was basically because Scientology had, they had sent around a bunch of cease and desist letters, or whatever it is that you send around, copyright claims on Tom Cruise videos, because Tom Cruise said that crazy shit, and people were shitposting it everywhere they could, and Scientology was taking it down, and basically they were trying to take a joke away from the internet. And so that's where LulzSec came from. They were security for jokes. And I'm pretty sure a bunch of them got arrested because they were hacking. I think they even hacked like some government, maybe it was NASA or something, I forget what it was, but it was just like their website. Like, it's back then a fucking website was so easy to hack. Basically, there was not even any need to secure them. It's not like they store private data or information on their website, right? You just hack into their website. You just have access to their digital public face. It's not their database. Hacking into their database is much different. You'd have to be on location or have a device in the location where their database is stored. It's definitely not connected to the internet, right? So anyways, that's getting off topic. I think that we need a sort of movement around the ideas that LulzSec embodied. Obviously, I'm not advocating hacking into any websites or, even ethical hacking or activist hacking, hacktivisting. None of that. You shouldn't do that. But I think the new online sort of approach to defending jokes is just to make them more. Like, they can't ban everybody, or they can, and then they're not going to be anything. What is Facebook if everybody gets banned from Facebook? It's nothing. It's a ghost town, like Minds, which pisses me off, because Minds could be good, and Minds actually, to be honest, it needs a bit of an overhaul, like on the interaction side. If I could engage with it easier, switch between accounts easier to run several pages, that's one of the things that they're lacking that Facebook gives me. I can run like 13 pages like I do from my one Facebook account, and so I can switch between them, make posts between them, just right from my phone. Mine has a lot of infrastructure to build, and I understand that's not easy. I don't have any experience in that, so I can't talk shit, but I'm just saying, kind of pisses me off that there's not more of a presence on any of these alt tech sites, because I get banned from Facebook a lot, and I don't want to move to the place where there is less people. Obviously, who wants to do that? If you're going to be putting out ideas, you want to have exposure in the public square, the place where the most people are. And that's Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, hands down. Everybody knows that. Those are the 3 big games in town. Instagram's for retarded people, and God bless their soul. I actually love retarded people, but like Louis C.K. said, we don't really let them hang out with us, right? So they are on Instagram. And Snapchat, that's just for actual, people. Just people in the world who don't even know what the internet is. They just have a cell phone, and they just have Snapchat. And that's fine, too. Those people need a place. And, of course, Reddit is for, why would you be on Reddit? I'm on Reddit just to steal shit. But I don't know why people post to Reddit. I don't see the incentive for that. And I don't see how it's good. It's like every subreddit is such a shitty echo chamber. I like some memes from some of the subreddits, and I agree with everything that they say, and so I understand if I was just in all those subreddits and I was looking through the comments and I saw someone I disagreed with, I'd jump on the pile. We'd all pile on them. But I'm also subscribed to a lot of places where I disagree with everything they post, every single thing, like Marxism 101 and fucking just the communism subreddit and things like that, and El Chapo Chapo House or whatever it is. And I go in there and I troll people, and even if I just say something rational, I just try to even slightly criticize something they say and start a dialogue, you get dogpiled on. There's no back and forth, there's no real, it's just a place to go steal shit from, basically. Reddit is communism on the internet. That's where communism lives, and that's fine. I mean, I'm a capitalist, but if there's communists hanging about, obviously I'll take their shit. That's why communism sucks, because anybody hanging around who's gonna take your shit. Unless, yeah, we won't get into that. That's for another video. For this video, I just wanted to make this video real quick, and hopefully I'm gonna make more videos for this channel, and if you like what I'm doing, you find anything funny, you want me to make more videos, you can donate to one of the links I'll put in the description. That way I don't have to work fucking 50 hours a week, maybe one day, and I'll make a bunch of videos. But for now, I'm just gonna make a few here and there, and if you like it, even just hitting like, subscribe, that kind of thing, really goes a long way. I'm pretty sure, I've been told. So, that's about all. Don't mean to be fucking stick, sex, and hammer, but that is about all, so.
Dialogue under the current conditions, it's pretty obvious that It's freedom of speech is a freedom that's particularly important for people who don't have anything else. Right? If you're supporting freedom of speech, you're not supporting the status quo. I mean, just think about it. Let's use the logic of the radical leftists and assume that society is a tyrannical hierarchy and the people at the top have the upper hand in everything, including access to communication. These people are not your friends. They say, you know, and mark my words, that's the sounds of the barbarians pounding at the gates. Right. Yeah, that's, I'll tell you again too, that use of inchoate, what would you call it? Inchoate sensation is the best formulation of their argument. And there's not much difference between knocking on the doors and knocking on you. So keep that in mind. It's not amusing. There's nothing to it. There's nothing for it. The thing that's also quite appalling is that there's no evidence whatsoever that the people who are conducting these protests know what it is that they're protesting against. You know, I was in the midst of a discussion attempting to make the case that it's freedom of speech that is what people who have nothing still have, right? So if you look at the tyrannical structure of our society, let's say, the people at the top have access to means of communication. Everyone knows that. It's the people at the bottom who have the right to say what they think, however badly they say it, that enables them to get a toehold into the system and to make their suffering known. That's what freedom of speech is for. And so, like, what's the protest against that? And I'll tell you, you know, that the radical neo-Marxist types, they speak the language of power. And that's what they're speaking right now. And if you want to live in a world where everyone speaks the language of power, then just let them do what they're doing and see what happens. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not a pretty road. And you're all in a position, you're all in a situation in your life now where you have to make decisions about this sorts of things. Like, is this the sort of institution that you want this to be?